gosh, it's so beautiful. I'm like, all I want is to sit here with a margarita. Like, it's been a long day.
Okay, good morning. We're here with Karina Christensen. She's a real estate professional with Runnable Real Estate, and she's also the developer, along with her husband Ron, of Contigo Cerritos in Cerritos, Baja. Thank you, Karina, for your time this morning.
It's nice to see you again, Alejandro.
Nice
Thanks for coming all the way to Pescadero.
Of course. Today we're going to explore this this trend, this phenomenon, I don't know how to call it, but it's about intentional communities, right? So it's a way of living that is gaining momentum recently over the last few years, and I want to hear all about it here in Baja, in the Pescadero and Cerritos area, but also around the world, because you're someone who travels. So what can you tell us about this idea of intentional communities?
For us, it started really when we started Contigo Cerritos. When we bought the land, Ron and I had fallen in love with this area. We looked around, but we hadn't found a community that we wanted to be part of. We hadn't found something that actually matched what we wanted. And so when we found this property here in Cerritos on the ocean, we're like, we have an opportunity to create something beyond the community, but something that matters to us and how we want to live. And so as we've been developing this over the last few years, more and more communities are starting to come up that call themselves intentional. And it's with a very specific point of view of how people are going to be living in this environment. And so you build the environment that encourage a certain kind of living, right? And it means that you attract like-minded individuals. You know, I don't mean with a political outlook, but I mean how they want to live their lives. You create common areas that encourage community coming together and sharing those activities that they like to do. You make it easy to exercise. Kitchen areas, for instance, you have a fitness center, you have a place where people can congregate at night. And so for us, the intentional living really was front and center to help us decide how we wanted to design our community.
I want to try to reach for a definition of intentional community, because I think it's like a spectrum, no? Like on one end of the spectrum, you can think of like a Zen monastery or something, which is like the very strict end of the spectrum, right?
Yes.
But maybe there's lots of other specific examples that fall in other kinds of, in other ways, in other parts of the spectrum, and they're more loose, but they still qualify for intentional communities. And I was thinking, and people have to be aligned on values and on lifestyle, right?
Exactly.
And if they're aligned on that, they share that.
Exactly.
Then they come together and live together and then it's an intentional community.
Exactly. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's the values. It's whatever values you either intrinsically or extrinsically. I mean, the values could be expressed in rules and regulations, or the values can be expressed in how the buildings are built, or how the community is built, right? Or the questions you ask potential buyers. You know, will this be a fit? And by the way, that's what we do. We interview people that want to be part of it, because we want to make sure that we all are aligned on how we live there and how we live with each other.
So tell us a little bit more, just an overview. We'll go back to the broader theme of intentional communities, but tell us and give us an overview of Contigo Cerritos, which is a development that you are behind.
So when we found this piece of property about 15 years ago, way before we found this property, Dan Buettner wrote a book called The Blue Zones. And he basically had gone around the world, and he was curious to find out why in certain parts of the world people live consistently over 100 years old. And he found these blue zones all over the world that all had this in common, where people lived consistently over 100 years, but they had 5 things in common. They mostly happened to be by the ocean, by the way. There's something about living at sea level. But then they had built-in movement, activity. There was a natural activity built in. They had built-in nourishment. And I don't mean just healthy food that comes from farms or fish from the ocean, but also spiritually. They're healthy, you know, they're whatever you're feeding your spirit and your body and your mind, that is nourishment. Then they had community built in so that people can be social and live with other people. They can connect with others. And then they're also stewards of something. And the last one is purpose.
Okay.
And he found that people have to have a purpose, right? And so these 5 pillars, we decided to base Contigo on because it rang true for us. It felt very natural. That's how I want to live. And it also helps you to live longer.
So there's stewards of, in this particular case, maybe there's stewards of the community itself?
Stewards, I think stewardship of the land.
Of the land.
Of the community that we're part of, the greater community, of the stewardship of the community itself. We have to be stewards of our natural resources, right?
Of course.
Water is scarce. So we decided to build a desalination plant. Electricity comes and goes, right? We don't have enough of a power grid here to support everything that's happening. So we built enough solar to run all the common areas. And then stewardship is also, especially when you live in a foreign country, is making sure that we tread lightly on the existing culture.
Yes. And the purpose part, I think, is interesting because normally we think of purpose as something very like individual, no? Like my own purpose.
Yeah.
But in this case, you're talking about shared purpose as well, right? So can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, and I think there is a lot of individual purpose. I mean, you have to feel a purpose to get yourself up in the morning, but it's a lot easier when you have a shared purpose and there are people around you that share the same, passions and the same hobbies, and you help out with a different nonprofit, and it's a lot easier to do that in community. Yeah. And so the shared purpose for me would be to create either, so you have shared purpose, you can all go hiking together every morning, you have a book club, you help the local schools, something along those ways.
Do you have any example of an intentional community that you saw maybe here, maybe elsewhere in the world that you were like, wow, like that's something that I like and that I would like to kind of replicate or emulate?
Exactly. Well, specifically right here in Pescadero, our friends Chef and Rachel built Baja Sage.
Okay.
And you're familiar with them. It's a beautiful community that they started before COVID. It just finished about a year ago. And they had bought a gorgeous farm. It was an old farm. And they decided to keep half of the farm and build homes on the other half. And the whole purpose was built around regenerative farming. And so everybody who bought into this community now gets to be part and gets to help tend the farm. They get to pick the fruits of their labor. But it also attracted a lot of similarly minded individuals that have come down to Baja for the same reason. And so now there is this rich community that they get together and celebrate all kinds of different things. It's not just about gardening anymore. They hold fundraisers, they get together, they enjoy each other. There's a couple of people that play in a theater, so everybody goes. Their initial purpose brought these people together, and now this community has grown into this beautifully rich, intentional community here in Baja.
Yes, and they are associated, I don't know in what degree, but somehow they're associated to the Modern Elder Academy.
Jeff was one of the founders.
Okay.
And a lot of people came that had attended Modern Elder and were curious, and they ended up buying a lot of the homes. So there is this purpose, right, that they are still attending Modern Elder, curious about life, taking courses. So they have that as well.
Exactly, and it's about like thriving in the second half.
Exactly.
Of your life, right?
Exactly.
And that's the idea. And I've seen that Jeff teaches there at Modern Elder, and he's lately, at least, his courses and his workshops are about friendship, right? And community. And he's like, it's very important, like for longevity and for thriving as you age. It's very important to have a community of people around you.
That is probably the singles when you look at all the research that is done, what is the single biggest indicator for a long life is people that have healthy relationships and friendships. It doesn't matter if you're biohacking. I mean, excuse me, I know it's great, but the most important thing is a social structure and a social network where you have friends and family that you connect with on a daily basis.
Of course, if you've seen small towns in like Spain or Italy, the old men, they're like 90 and they're smoking cigarettes, but they get together every afternoon, and that's why they live till 100.
Yeah, play cards, play dominoes, absolutely.
They're not exercising.
They're not exercising. No, they're definitely not biohacking.
No. Are buyers asking about this, or when they come to Cerritos and Pescadero, do they ask, or is it more something that you kind of felt was happening and you kind of did it, or was it more like a response of the market, or a mix of both?
Ever since COVID, I think people have been looking to live a more intentional life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, you can buy the nicest house and you can buy the nicest car, but to have a life that is really where you can live your best life, it takes an environment. And I think what people are really searching for anymore is a connection with others, with nature, with a purpose in life. And we just got done with a tour here with a couple from Chicago. And when we were telling them about what the community has to offer and what the lifestyle is like here, their eyes just popped, right? And like, this is what we're looking for. Like, this is why we come here. I don't want just a house, beautiful house on the ocean. I want to be part of something bigger than that, and I want to have meaning in my life. And I think that's what we're seeing more and more. You know, there's lots of them. I mentioned to you earlier, I just saw this beautiful, this young couple bought 110 acres somewhere in Spain, and they are building these inexpensive houses. But they also hit a nerve because it was also intentional. They had a common kitchen and gardens and a little school. And so people were drawn to a lifestyle that I think we left behind a little bit when we all grew up in smaller towns, and the neighbors would come out and you would know all your neighbors. And I think that had gotten lost a little bit. And I think during COVID, we all felt that we want to recapture some of that.
So do you feel this is sort of a reaction against, or a response against like some trends, certain trends in modern life that maybe are not so healthy, or?
I think so. I think it's a response to an artificial life, right? Where we're all we're touching, but we're not connecting. And I think human beings really crave true and authentic connection. And it's easy to do here, right? Because the weather is easy and we're all coming from a different country. The locals here are incredibly welcoming. And so you can not only have an incredible, beautiful home, but you also are part of a bigger community, like an authentic community.
Yes, and we need the infrastructure, right? We need people to actually organize a book club or actually build the community, right? Because otherwise it's very hard to really share and meet.
Yeah, and it needs to be built in. You know, it's much harder if you're living on a house out in the out somewhere with a big wall around it. It doesn't encourage like community, right? You are there, you're by yourself, and that's perfectly fine for a lot of people. But when you design environments that allow people to naturally bump into each other, we designed lots of different areas where people can sit and watch the sunset at night, or play a game, or come to the common kitchen and use the pizza oven or the grill. You bump into your neighbors and you start conversations that you normally wouldn't have. And also, same thing, and helps you stay active, right? Built-in fitness center, built-in a lap pool, you take the stairs up and down. I mean, there's something that architecture can do to help them.
Exactly, and all of these are features that you guys have built into Contigo Cerritos, correct?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Can you tell us what kind of questions you ask? What kind of profile are you looking for
I think
at
that,
Contigo?
Yeah, and it's really funny. We're not, it's funny when you say that, like we're profiling. We're not profiling, but we do want to this is going to be where we're going to be living, right? And so we want to make sure that people have a similar outlook on life, want the same things, because if you have somebody coming in and it's a tight community, right? These are not houses that are 20 meters apart. We're very close to each other with lots of common spaces. If that doesn't work for you, that probably is not right for you. Like if you don't want to see your neighbors, Contigo is not right for you, right? You need to buy something somewhere that has a big lot with a wall around you. And so having conversations in the beginning when someone's interested, we do start having a conversation with them. We get to know them, understand what they're looking for. And very quickly, as you know, right? You meet people. I mean, we met and we immediately knew that we're going to be friends, right? There's just something, there's like a commonality where, you're always curious, you're asking questions. And so I think that's really the process, is finding the right people. And we only have, in the end, there'll be 15 homes, and we only have 8 to sell. It's very important that we find the right people.
So only 8 out of 15 are right now on the market. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
And this, I think, brings us back a little bit to the previous video that we did when we were talking about like how luxury has lots of meanings, and here in this area it has perhaps a very specific meaning that has to do with this. For example, Contigo is right on the ocean, but for example, Baja Sage is not. It's inland, but it fits the definition of a luxury kind of community in the sense that it kind of fosters people's flourishing, right?
That's exactly it, because really luxury anymore, we use it for so many things, but really when you think about the luxury of time, right? The luxury of health, the luxury of friendships, that for me is where all that lies. Like that's what luxury for me is at this point.
So it's more about community and identity and all of the other features. Location, that's important as well, and finishes. Can you tell us a bit of that with regards to Contigo Cerritos?
Yeah. Healthy environment is more than just fresh air and being on the ocean. We're also really concerned about what we're putting into the houses, right? We want to be concerned about having a healthy indoor environment. We have a friend who's a consultant in the health space, and she gave us some really great ideas about how can we make sure that the air that we breathe inside is as healthy as the air outside, right? So no VOC paints, some paints that are not, that don't create fumes. We're using a lot of natural materials and don't use a lot of toxic chemicals, making sure that we have good airflow. So that's also part of the whole package. It's like, it's not just what you eat, it's also what we surround yourself with. And
so tell us more about the stage in which the project is right now.
We are fully approved. We started selling on the, we were started on the MLS 2 months ago, exactly. We are hopefully going to start construction fall of this year. We are just finalizing all of our engineering and timelines with our contractor. We have picked a contractor. They're ready to go. I told you before, we have changed our floor plans to larger homes. So these are now done. And so we are literally just a few sales away from starting.
The intention is by the fall, start building. And when do you think, what's the timeline for completion?
Yeah, so from when we start construction, 24 to 30 months.
Okay, 24 to 30 months.
Exactly.
How much interest are you getting? Because we sometimes hear that right now it's low season, or that the boom of after the pandemic has slowed down. So how can you tell us how the market is behaving right now, just in that segment?
In that segment, it's really fascinating because we just had another showing here. What we've definitely noticed is the high-end market is thriving.
And high-end in Cerritos?
In Cerritos, $1.2 million and up, right? In Cerritos. I mean, this is, we don't have Cabo prices. We're an oceanfront home is $3.5 million, right? For a nice house in Pescadero, it's about 1.2, 1.3. That market is doing very well. I mean, that market we have more homes going on under contract in that price range than we have on the lower end homes. And there is not much on the market. So there has been a lot of interest. Now with pre-construction, it's always a little harder because people have to wait, right? I mean, there's this thing, I could buy something today and live in it, or I wait 24 to 30 months. The good news is there's not a lot available oceanfront. And so we're getting a good enough activity on our product and on our homes and inquiries. And it takes a while. The average buyer here, from when they start looking to when they buy something, is 3 years.
Okay.
That's crazy, right? But then there's people that come in and they see something and they buy something. So
yes,
we have it's almost a little bit of a different market.
But I think at Contigo you have the fundamentals, like the fundamentals are very strong. Like it's beachfront, so that's
exactly.
oceanfront, very important, and you have a very solid contractors and like infrastructure behind. Correct.
Yes. So, and we're the only property with a desalination plant. We're going to be making our own water.
Okay.
Which is that was really important to us, that we don't, extract the resources here, and also it provides a much more controlled environment for our neighbors.
And do you have any estimate of the difference in price that the buyer will get if they buy now versus the value of the home when it's delivered?
The best example we have from is the Cove, right? Okay. The Cove condominiums that were built. It's really the only oceanfront multifamily development that has been built in the last 5 years in Cerritos, and their prices tripled. Now their prices were way lower than ours, so I don't expect our prices to triple. I think that would be crazy. In pre-construction, you're getting a home 3 years from now from the cost from today, right? So 3 years from now, you're going to buy something that you paid whatever it costs today. And that's really what the appreciation is. In the last few years, the average price here has gone up between 15 and 19%.
Per year?
Per year in Cerritos. Now, this is based on lower prices. So I don't want to say that this is going to be a 20% appreciation on the high end.
And it's based on the past. So we don't know that the past doesn't predict the future. But
I really can't say that. But the best thing I can say is today's prices, you're getting a home in 3 years from what the prices are today, right? 3 years back. Exactly. And if you look 3 years back today, would you have been happy getting a house today for what it cost 3 years ago to build?
Yes,
absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah. And beachfront. And every time something gets built beachfront, it means that there is less beachfront. So it becomes more scarce and therefore more valuable.
Well, and construction costs alone have gone up. So this year alone, concrete costs have gone up 16%.
Okay.
So if you think about future builder having to build what we're building today, you can't duplicate what we're building today in the future for that price, because it's going up so much. Land costs are going up, construction costs are going up, labor costs are going up. People that wait, we get this all the time. I'm like, it's the bottom of the market. Like, it's not. It's not the bottom of the market. It's a window right now where we're selling inventory that was built for much lower construction costs. Once this inventory here is gone, everything in the future is going to be more expensive. It's just what it has to be.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you just can't build it anymore for that.
It's market logic. Definitely.
Yeah.
Karina, is there anything that we should be talking about that we missed? Anything that you would like to add?
You reminded me. Sometimes you forget while you're in it, while you're doing something, and I love that I got to revisit why and how we built Contigo based on this love of these shared pillars from the blue zones. And really what's happening here is that Pescadero and Cerritos, it's its own blue zone. Like, we live in one, right? And this is why people are drawn here. So it's fun to get to talk about it in a way that's a lot more holistic than just, hey, come and live at the beach.
Of course.
But really, you're moving into a blue zone, and this is going to help your longevity.
Perfect. With that, thank you, Karina. We'll continue this conversation hopefully soon, in a couple of months.
Great.
And thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Alejandro. Thanks for coming to see us.
Of course.
Great to see you. Bye.